What's up YouTube, Webberz05 here, coming out today with Q&A number 27. So just doing this one as a regular Q&A, guys. I would probably be continuing with my doing so whilst playing a game. However, I'm currently in the position I need to get my Switch repaired because it kind of glitched on me Friday night and now it's not working properly, so I just need to get that sorted out. So I've actually got some additional questions to say on top of what Dark Magician has sent me as per usual. So let's get into that. So first, question from my friend Sparkman, who's asked, what do you think about the idea of increasing the extra deck size? Well, I think it would depend on what they increase the extra deck size to. Personally, I think Konami could probably get away with changing the extra deck size to 18 and it would still be fine. I feel 18 would be a good number simply because of certain cards like Extravagance and Prosperity, in which banishes resources from your extra deck in multiples of 3. So with 3 copies you can go 6, you can go 6, 6, then 3. So in terms of Prosperity, that's not really a huge deal because it's banish 6, you get to dig through 6 cards, or you could just banish 3 to dig through 3 cards, so works out fine for anyone. So works out fine for a lot of players if they don't want to lose too many of their resources, or if they generically don't care for their extra deck anyway, because you're still digging through a lot of cards. But in terms of something like Extravagant, it's like you want to banish 6 to draw 2, so you can get the +1 advantage, and then once you get to the third one, you have to banish 3, and then you only get 1, so it's just not as good. But if the extra deck size was pumped to 18, then at least all 3 times you could do banish 6, draw 2, and then you're always getting that +1 advantage. So, and frankly, I feel with most players' extra decks, even though like the extra deck limit is 15, most decks typically seem to only go through like 4 or 5 specific cards of what they need. Like thinking through a deck like Sprite will typically only go through Elf, Gigantic, Sprint, Toad, then maybe 2 or 3, then maybe a couple of others just to go through situation, and then 2 or 3 others which are like situationals. Tillaments, the only things I ever see Tillaments going to are Kick Kalos, Kaleido Heart, Rule Kalos, what's it called? Dragastapelia, and then depending on the variants, they'll either go into like Sprite Elf or Abyss Dweller, depending on the matchup. Me personally, as an Endymion player, I have a 15 card extra deck, but frankly, I only really see myself going through like typically seems to be going through like 5 specific cards. So, and then everything else is either like an additional duplicate or just a situational card. So, yeah, personally, I feel they could pump the extra deck to 18. Probably wouldn't do too much. Except maybe in a deck like Heroes, because it just gives them a few more spaces to have a few more situational options, but that's just Heroes. That's kind of what they do. But yeah, pump it to 18, keep it at 15. Don't really think it makes a huge difference. And then my next 8 questions are from Dark Magician 84, along with some quick comments regarding the last video. So I'd have thought you knew Pendulum All-Stars was my favourite because I did that video on my top 10 favourite decks that you played. I kind of vaguely remember that. It was quite a while ago since I watched it. I'd probably have to rewatch it to remember. Shame it won't come back, but fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I've got lots of different Pendulum variants, so didn't really feel like having that one as well. I might try Berserker Soul depending on how many monsters I end up playing. Thanks for the tip. Phil, I would recommend trying Berserker Soul in your Cyberdarks. It's a lot of fun, but as you said, you are right, it is kind of dependent on your ratio of monsters. Like, when I was playing it in my variant, I actually only played 6 spells, which gave me an 85% chance of actually hitting a monster off Berserker Soul, which is really good, which gives you pretty much no reason not to be using it. The only reason I figured out that percentage was through a calculator. I'm sure me and Emma will have fun in Texas, thanks. You're very welcome. The reason why I mentioned concern about lack of gravity is because it's apparently not good for bones and can be hard readjusting to normal gravity after being in space for a while. Yeah, yes, because when you're in space there's no gravity, so it can like decompress your bones. So technically speaking, it can actually make you taller for a small amount of time until naturally your body readjusts back to normal, and then you just go back to how you were. And good luck finding emblems. I checked through all my stuff a few days ago. I was able to find one copy of Emblem of Dragon Destroyer and a skilled white magician, which isn't great. But since I'm thinking of teching this in the side deck of Endymion, it's not so bad because skilled white magician is a monster that can hold spell counters, so it's got that synergy. So I could probably get away with having one of each in my side and it should be fine. I'm currently debating whether I'm going to test it this evening. I probably will. Because who knows, maybe it'll be great to deal with some Bestials. And now that we've got all that pre-stuff out of the way, let's get into the actual questions. So question 1, what if I told you that I'm rebuilding my Blackwings? I somehow keep ending up with all the cards in trades and pulls from packs, so I thought, why not? But why not indeed? Blackwings is a very fun deck. I say go for it. I would rebuild mine, but you know me, I've been saying I'm going to rebuild that for so long and I just can't be bothered to do it right now. Additionally, lots of people right now just seem to be interested in the individual pieces of some Blackwings for things like Edison, so I feel like me just having the deck is useful to like help people out trying to build Edison, which is fine, but I'm not really interested in playing Edison right now. But yeah, just be very interested in seeing you with Blackwings after you get yours sorted out. Question 2, are there any other countries you'd like to visit? Pretty much most of the countries I wanted to visit I have, but there's not really like a specific country I want to visit. There are a couple of states that I want to visit, which I'm hopefully, though those ones I'll be doing later this year. One of which is Rhode Island, because when I was in Boston, one of our friends offered to take me out to Rhode Island so I could cross that off as another state, but we never got the chance. They've now moved to Rhode Island, so I'm going to go visit them, and then that's another state, so I'd also be very interested in seeing it. Pretty cool. Question 3, have you ever read the Harry Potter books or seen the movies? I have read all of the books, and I have seen all the movies. The books I thought were really interesting. I was kind of upset with some of the things that they cut from the book, that they took out of the books and didn't put into the films, but overall I thought the films were very enjoyable. 4. If you played an Egyptian god in any of your decks, which one would it be? So probably the thing is, the Winged Dragon of Ra is probably the easiest one to use, because you could just do something like, because I could sphere mode my opponent, I could pick up things like Owner's Seal to get it back, tribute off and summon Ra for free, which would be really easy. Though personally, I'd probably want to play Slifer as my favourite god. If you can't tell from the poster behind me, I know you can't see all of it, but you can see the bit which is Slifer the Sky Dragon. But naturally, Slifer builds, you have to base your deck around the ability to keep lots of cards in your hand. That being said, if I was to play it in Endymion, it wouldn't be too difficult, since I'm now playing the Judgment variant, so I could go Judgment some part of my turn, do a bunch of special summons, do a bunch of special summons, play a lot of spells, tribute 3 monsters, drop Slifer, end of my turn, pick up as many spellbooks as I can to increase my hand, and then just get a free special summon of a spellcaster. So yeah, that could be pretty interesting. Frankly, I understand Obelisk is the only one with like decent stats and stable stats, but not really my thing. 5. If you played a Wicked God in any of your decks, which one would it be? So I had to reread each of the Wicked Gods to see what they do. I think, frankly, the only one that kind of would interest me is the Wicked Dreadroot. I do remember playing that very briefly in one of my video game decks on the World Championship Series games on the DS. It was just a nice 4K beast that halved the stats of everything else, which made it very useful for just smacking over opponents for game. So that was pretty fun. Wicked Avars and the other two, they're just kind of really niche with their effects and their stats, so kind of average. So Wicked Dreadroot, probably just because it's the most consistently easy to use. 6. If you played a Sacred Beast in any of your decks, which one would it be? So based on the decks that I have, I would probably have to say Raviel, and playing that in Plunder Patrol, since naturally Plunder Patrols are all fiends. Plunder Patrols can quite easily get a lot of monsters on the field at once, so probably wouldn't be impossible to be able to drop Raviel in Plunder Patrol. And then naturally, with Raviel's effect, I could tribute one of them to give it stats, to give it a stat buff on Raviel, and then that also would trigger a Plunder Patrol, allowing me to do its thing as well. So, could work, but I'm not entirely sure. But something to think about. Probably not actually going to do it, but still, that's an interesting thought of something I could do if I feel like it. Question 7. If you played an Earthbound Immortal in any of your decks, which one would it be? So I had to do a bit of thinking about each of the effects of the Earthbound Immortals. Frankly, there's just so many of them which just kind of go against what Earthbound Immortals do, so I was thinking it through. Like, I get like one of the best, like some of the best ones, like Asilipiscu and Kokoraya, because of their ability of when they leave. Because like with the Asilipiscu, if it leaves the field, you get to nuke your opponent's board and burn them 800 for each monster, which is pretty cool, which is pretty neat, but yeah, not really my thing. Kokoraya just completely nukes the board if it gets destroyed outside of its own effect. So again, decent, but not really any of my decks would benefit from having my own field nuked. And there's things like, and then you compare the cards with like Kokopakapu and Kusalu. They have good individual effects, but considering Earthbound and more, but they're based on other monsters in battle, and since Earthbound Immortals can attack directly, it kind of makes their effects redundant. Unless say you were playing a card like Shift, in which you could force your opponent to attacking the Earthbound Immortal, but do you really want to? But is there really much point in going to that effort when you can just smack directly with them? And then things like Uru and Wiracocha Rosca, they've got decent effects, but they just take a lot to set up, so they're just not really ideas. So probably my pick would be Chakuchalua, the whale, simply because he's got the nice, easy, probably the easiest to use effect. So if I'm attacking with it, I can just go smack directly for 29. If I'm in the position that if I'm being, say, forced into a position where I can't attack or I don't want to attack, I could just be like, cool, switch Chakuchalua into defense. Now my opponent can't conduct their battle phase, and because of its own effect, it can give up its ability to attack to inflict damage to burn my opponent for half of its defense. So it's got that now. So that's a pretty neat thing to do as well. So that's probably why I picked Chakuchalua. Question 8. This is a relatable question to the one about Emma and your decks that you asked for my 75th Q&A episode. Which of Emma's decks are you most keen to play against? Melfi, Lightsworn, Magician Girl, Karibo, or Fortune Fairy? Although at the time of writing this, she is yet to learn how to play Karibo and Fortune Fairy. Well, that last bit's quite unfortunate, because those are actually the two decks I would be very interested in playing against. Because I know Fortune Fairies are kind of like the smaller versions of Fortune Ladies, so I would like to see what that deck can do on its own. I'd also just be very interested in seeing what a Karibo deck can actually now do with all of its new support, because I don't think I've had a chance to play against one of those yet. So, a bit intrigued to see what they would like, but if she needs time to learn those, that is completely fine. So, in regards to the other three decks, that's difficult to say, because I think it would depend on what deck that I'm playing. So, like, Lightsworn's always quite a nice, interesting deck, but I've had so many matches against Lightsworn from back in the day, so it's one of those, I know how it works, I know what I'm expecting. Magician Girl, I've played against multiple forms of Magician Girl. It's quite an interesting deck, to say the least. But I'd probably have to say her signature deck of Melfi, because I've not had a chance to play against that. Additionally, Melfi's I know are all Earth monsters, and since we're about to get the new Plunder Patrol, which is an Earth, would give me a chance to test out Plunder Patrol and the new Earth ship to see how well that works. But additionally, since it's her signature deck, it would also be a nice way to do another signature showdown of my signature deck of Endymion against hers, but frankly I think Endymion might be a bit much for her to handle straight on the way, so probably Plunder Patrol is like a kind of nice balance in between to see what like a more competitive variant is like, but without being too overly harsh with it. Plus, naturally, since Melfi's are all Earths, I can't do the easy thing with Plunder Patrols of using all the main ones that I want to, but like I said, it gives me a new chance to test out the Earth one, which I still actually need to read about what it completely does, because I've really been putting that off recently. And on that note, that is all the questions on this week's Q&A, so thank you very much to everyone who asked questions, and for anyone who wants to ask me any future questions, I do these Q&As every Wednesday afternoon UK time. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.